Hello dear viewer, your best friend and real father Murdoch X here. You know what I realized recently? I've never done a best of PlayStation 2 games video. Until now. The 23 best PlayStation 2 games in my collection. The games on this list are games that I enjoy for one reason or another. Some games are on here because I've put a surprising amount of time into them, and others are here because they're pure fun. I'm making this video to document my current tastes to see how much they change in the future as my collection grows. I suspect my top games will remain the same, but some of the games that barely made it onto this list may get bumped. Hopefully I discover new and awesome games in the next 12 months that I was unaware, because that's the biggest joy for me in video game collecting. I love a nice surprise. These games are in no particular order, except I'll be bunching similar games together and saving my favorite one for the very end. Let's jump right in and start things off with a heavy hitter. Katamari Damacy, one of the biggest surprises in the PlayStation 2's armada of games. Gaming culture was moving towards more adult-oriented games during the PS2 reign over the gaming industry, but a few weird Japanese games snuck into the American market, like Stretch Panic and Mr. Mosquito. Stretch Panic is terrible, Mr. Mosquito is good, but Katamari Damacy, it's an amazing game. This guy, the king of the cosmos right here, got super wasted and broke the universe, so now it's up to you, the young prince, to create new planets and stars by rolling around a sticky ball to pick up, stuff. I love the tank controls of this game, and the idea is simple. Besides being a fantastic game, it was also a budget title. At a time when AAA games were going for around $50, this was only $20. It's hard to find something more satisfying than the screams of children as you attach them to your Katamari before launching them into space to appease your crazy alcoholic father. The next game on this list is Indigo Prophecy. I had never heard of this game before I bought it, and I'm not super into the playstyle, but for what the developers were trying to create, I think they nailed it. There's a whole tutorial to this game where the writer and director of the game explains the controls and how they're supposed to be more immersive. It comes off as a little bit silly to me, but it works. What makes this game so good isn't the controls though, it's the story. We start this adventure by watching our protagonist under some kind of hypnotism murder a guy in a restaurant restroom. This is when we get to take control of the character, and our job is to clean up the mess so we can leave the restaurant without getting caught for the murder we just commit. Clean up the blood, hide the body, pay for the meal we had before we went back there. Did we have a meal? I won't spoil the plot of the game for you, but you also get to control the police investigating the murder, and there are a lot of moral gray area situations that you will be presented with. Those hard decisions that really spice up a story, and it's fantastic. This is one of the most cinematic games I've ever seen. The third game on our list should be an obvious one. It's Final Fantasy X. I think the PS1 had the best RPGs thanks to Final Fantasy VII, IX, and Tactics, as well as the first two Suikoden games, but there's plenty to enjoy on this console as well. I think this may be the last Final Fantasy game I ever completed, possibly the last JRPG I ever finished. I don't have a whole lot to say about this game because it has been a long time since I've played it. I remember the twist at the end, and I always jokingly refer to this as the water bondage Final Fantasy because of Tidus's outfit, but I must have liked it. I do need to play Final Fantasy XII though, as it takes place in the world of Ivalice, which is the same world as Final Fantasy Tactics. When I jumped into this game to record this footage, I was happy to see that this game uses the turn-based battle system. It may not have been the best system, but I prefer to win battles in role-playing games based off of my strategy, not because of superior hand-eye coordination. I already have plenty of action games, you know? Now let's move into what I'm calling the Rockstar category. Grand Theft Auto Vice City was my first foray into the world of Grand Theft Auto. I remember being blown away with how much fun this game was and how perfect the controls were. I wish I had gotten into this franchise earlier. Besides being my first game in the series, the 1980s settings also stimulated my nostalgia gland. I have loved every Grand Theft Auto game I have played so far, and after a full day of playing any of them, it may be dangerous to drive. I find that when I'm roaming around town after a long GTA session that I catch myself looking at the gap between cars on the road and thinking to myself, I could squeeze past if I drove between them. Does this happen to anyone else? Either way, this game is loads of fun, whether it's run and gunning, driving, missions, or listening to what I wish real radio stations were like. Next up in the Rockstar lineup is Bully. I feel like this game is loved, but It never got a sequel. Red Dead Revolver got a sequel, and that original game was not very good. Not sure what happened here, but this is a great game. It's no Grand Theft Auto, but the story is surprisingly good and the gameplay is solid. From shooting kids with a slingshot to passing chemistry via a minigame, there is a lot to see at Bulworth Academy as Jimmy Hopkins while he decides who he's going to side with and how he's going to deal with the sociopath that's latched onto him. This game has a faction system. Do you want to be cool with the nerds or the bullies? Hey Warriors, come out to play! The Warriors is the third and final Rockstar game on today's list, based off of the 1979 movie about a gang that is framed for a murder and has to survive the New York City gangs as they work their way back to their base of operations on Coney Island. The video game, on the other hand, is a prequel to the movie and has that Rockstar feel that all of their games have. Unique to this game is some of the team mechanics and some of the available crimes to commit. There's an entire mechanic to stealing radios out of cars in this game. There's also a method to level up the character's skills through various methods of training. And then there's the wacky rival gangs like the Baseball Furies or the Hi-Hats. They're the ones that look like mimes. What a fun game. Now for one of the games I would never have expected, Shrek Superslam. This game is stupid fun. It's a 3D Shrek fighting game that feels a little bit like Smash Bros, but packed with silliness. Besides the single player or multiplayer fighting, there are also challenges that keep the game interesting. Superslam was developed by Shaba Games, the same people behind some of the Tony Hawk games, and they nailed it. For getting stuck with a licensed property, they made it work, and I need to play more of this when I have company over because it's hilarious and fun. Play this game, you won't regret it. As much as I love Shaba Games, they didn't make the Tony Hawk game that I think is my favorite, which is Tony Hawk's Underground. It's interesting to see which Tony Hawk game people pick as their favorite, as the older ones were generally more difficult, but more recent games allowed for ridiculously long combos. I love having loads of ways to chain combos, but I despise the slow motion focus mode, which this game introduced. Despite that stain on the franchise, I'd still go with this game because I like the open world system of play, the story, and the characters. This was also the first game to introduce the cavemen, which made maneuvering the stages more manageable as well as new combo possibilities. I love jumping from a caveman into a Nada spin. Back to Shaba Games though, with Wakeboarding Unleashed featuring Sean Murray, another extreme sports style of game with Tony Hawk controls that I absolutely love. There may be a recency bias here, but this appeals to my old school Tony Hawk sensibilities from when there were downhill stages. I love how being pulled behind a boat adds new gameplay mechanics like losing speed when not holding the rope, which means you need to get back within the boat's range so you can have someone toss the rope back to you and continue moving. This game is fast-paced and intense, and I'm surprised at how many people are familiar with this title from a demo that came with one of the Tony Hawk games. I guess I never spent that much time playing demos. Huh. Did I mention we were in the extreme sports category of this video? If not, we are, and the final game on that list is Disney's Extreme Skate Adventure developed by Toys for Bob. I thought this was going to be a bad knockoff skating game like Simpsons Skateboarding, but this game actually uses the Tony Hawk 3 engine. The difficulty has been lowered with this title, but that's okay because it's still loads of fun. This is proof that kids games can be great and don't need to be stupid. The Disneyifying of the skateboarding genre is pretty fun with the trick names, and it's just kind of awesome to play as Woody skateboarding around Toy Story. Now for the greatest racing game of all time, Burnout 3. The racing is a blast in this game, with the player being rewarded for taking risks like driving down the wrong side of the highway, but let's be honest, it's the crashing that makes this game amazing. When a wreck happens, you have a little bit of control of the vehicle as it flies through the air, and you can cause massive damage by causing a chain reaction of crashes. This game is not easy, but the frustrations make you just want to jump right back in and ace the stage. Later games in the series decided to try the open world approach, but I prefer the stage select method we have here. This is another fast-paced adrenaline game that I'm always happy to play. I wonder why they stopped making games in this series. Bring back Burnout! We have to talk about Spongebob Squarepants Battle for Bikini Bottom now. One thing I've noticed with my PlayStation 2 game collecting is that Nickelodeon has the best track record on this system for their video games. Disney has some good ones and some bad ones, and I don't think I've found a good Cartoon Network game yet. Poor Spongebob got a strange mix of good and bad for PS2, but this title almost makes the bad ones forgivable. Battle for Bikini Bottom is a nearly perfect 3D platformer. On the list of things to love about this game are the hub world, multiple characters to play as, unlockable abilities, staying true to the show, giant robots, Texas, bowling, missiles, wedgie jumping, I don't know, pretty much everything about this game. It's hard to come up with things I don't like about this title. Now let's get to one of my favorite franchises, Culdcept. This title was the first iteration we got here in the United States, and I'm glad that we did because we've continued to see more games in the series since. The most recent release on 3DS is a game that I love pouring time into, and I do mean pouring time into. This game is sort of like Magic the Gathering meets Monopoly, and many of the stages can easily take over an hour to play. I've dumped so much time into these games, and I'm just now realizing I don't think I've ever beat any of them. One of the nice features about this game is that whether you win or lose on the board you're playing, you'll still earn new cards that you can build decks with. I know that bad digital card games have been plaguing the video game market lately, but Culdcept stands apart from the crowd. Diablo 1 was released on PS1, and Diablo 3 was released on PS3, but Diablo 2 never made it to any console. It stayed on PC, but what we did get was a couple of XMen Legends games, and I truly enjoy the first one. An XMen dungeon crawler style of game? How awesome is that? PS2 got a strange mix of games in the genre, but it was great to see it done with superheroes. The different characters all feel very different as their powers are unique, but there's also an upgrade system that adds yet another level of depth to this game. I'm still blown away that this game even exists. As much as I like XMen Legends though, my favorite dungeon crawler on the system is Champions of Norrath. A little bit of my love for this game is because I was an EverQuest addict back in the day, but really, this is a perfect dungeon crawler game in my opinion. The balance is there so it's not too easy and not too hard. The abilities and items become more interesting and specialized as we get further into the game. The co-op is perfect. This is my go-to PS2 game for when I have company over. Building your character through leveling up, customizing, and finding the most effective items for your playstyle fits together in exactly the right way with this title. This is still the best dungeon crawler I have ever played. This next game I don't have any footage for because it's a music game and a dancing game. Dance Dance Revolution is a blast, and I have several different versions, but there are people that live below me. Also, I wouldn't be able to play any of the music in this video, but it's Dance Dance Revolution. I'm sure you know what the game is like. Fun music and hopping around on the dance pad make for the sweatiest video game that I've ever played, and it's fantastic. The biggest music franchise of them all is Guitar Hero, with Guitar Hero 2 being my favorite. Guitar Hero 2 has Buckethead's Jordan and Freeze Pop's Less Talk, More Rock as unlockable stages, and both are amazingly difficult to beat on expert mode. Also, if you're not playing on at least hard mode, you're not doing it right. Seriously, if you think you're good at Guitar Hero but you don't know what a hammer-on or a pull-off is, then you need to go back and relearn this game because it's way more fun when the challenge is amped up. For real, if you're playing on medium difficulty, stop being a little punk and learn how to play this game. I get a little bit aggressive about that game, but not about this game, which is Metropolis Romanian. This game seems to be generally hated by most players, so I can't say that I recommend this game, but I do enjoy it. Sort of. I can't say that this is a great game, but I keep on playing it. My best guess about why I like this game is that maybe it's the campiness. This game's translation did not go over well at all. Besides strange clipped conversations that seem to hop around, you will occasionally have citizens of your town ask you riddles that I don't think work when translated. Okay, that part of the game is bad, but I enjoy the city building, the relationship building, the strangeness of the characters, but what I don't like is answering to our boss in the game. He's a total Nazi. Another surprise for me was Barnyard. I tried to watch the movie that this game was based on and I hated it, but this game from a movie and television show that I had never heard of is kind of awesome. It's sort of a mashup of a lot of smaller games, but not always mini games. It's a 3D platformer, but the missions may have you squirting people with your own milk, screwing with the mailman by dancing behind him, or playing a sort of jump rope game against your fellow farm inhabitants. There's a lot going on here, but it's all fun. Plus, you can earn money to upgrade the barn with games and stuff. Next on the list is Ribbit Cake. There are loads of golf games for the PlayStation 2 and pretty much every console ever, but this one is uniquely dumb, and I love it. They just took the idea of a golf game and made it silly, but it works. Use a mallet to launch a frog towards the hole and attempt to rack up big combos by landing the frog near flies or launching him through point bubbles. It's a silly game and any strategy you think you may have is quickly tossed out the window, but it's fun. Lots of fun. Now we're down to the final 3 games on this list, and they're all turn-based strategy role-playing games. I love strategy games, and the PS2 got the best releases we've ever had in the US, with the exception of Final Fantasy Tactics being a PS1 game. So the first strategy game I'd like to tell you about is Disgaea. This is the funniest game that I have ever played in my life. You play as Laharl, the heir to leadership of the underworld, when he wakes from a long slumber to find out that his father has been assassinated. As a young demon, he is expected to attend school to learn the most effective ways to be evil, but he also knows that skipping class is more evil than attending class. From bribing demon senators to murdering Power Rangers, this is one of the best stories a video game has ever told. The gameplay is a standard square grid strategy role-playing style with multiple classes and turn-based actions, but to spice things up, this game has geo-panels to add unique abilities to some of the squares on the grid that can be manipulated to do things like increase experience or lose life. There are also ways to destroy these geo-panels in a giant combination to reap bonus rewards from the stages. This game is a classic, and I have completed all 5 in the series. Next up is Phantom Brave. This game parted with the grid movement system and uses a radius style and geometric shapes to determine the areas affected by an attack. I much prefer the radius system to the grid system, but this game did something a little bit strange and added bounce and slipperiness effects. This can be fun because you can walk far further than you are meant to by sliding along ice or bouncing up to high areas, but it's also a little bit distracting. My favorite part of any SRPG though is the character creation and the customization. The methods used to upgrade and power level your characters are intriguing. This extra level of strategy adds so much to the game that if you are a completionist, you should never play this title, as it would take you years to 100% it. I didn't mention it before, but the max level in Disgaea and in Phantom Brave is 9,909, even though you can beat the game at around level 65. This also goes for my favorite game on the console, which is Makai Kingdom. This game is nearly perfect, and it makes me so sad that the developers chose to continue with the Disgaea style of play over this. This uses the geometric movement and attack system again, but takes away the quirky ground bounce and slide effects. The power leveling techniques and deep dungeons are amped up here. My biggest complaint about this game and Phantom Brave as well is that the story isn't very good. The same goes for all of the Disgaea sequels as well. In all fairness, I play games to play. I usually don't care much for the story, and that's okay because in this game the gameplay, they really get it right. The level of depth to this game is astounding. For example, I've beaten this game multiple times, but I've still never taken the time to learn how the vehicles work. The class system in this game is loads of fun. You can create monster and human classes when you attach souls to the items that you gather. The stats of the created character are affected by the items you choose to attach them to. For example, rocks are good if you're going to create a character with high defense, and flowers are good for creating magicians with high intelligence and high SP. When moving around maps, there are some interesting strategies. For example, you can summon a hospital to the map, then summon characters onto the map, have them hop into that hospital, and then have them hop out even further away and then use their movement points while also gaining a regen ability thanks to the building. It's also possible to create a giant stack of characters carrying each other and keep throwing the tower to get the guy at the top all the way across the stage. Learning all of these movement tricks becomes very important, as you'll spend much of the game working your way through free dungeons, which are randomly generated and can get very difficult. Did I mention that all 3 of these games take place inside of the same game universe? Laharl can be unlocked in both Phantom Brave and Makai Kingdom. These were all developed and released by Nipponichi Software, but they haven't been making as many strategy games lately, and that's too bad. We still get Disgaea games, and I'm thankful for that, but I would absolutely love to see another Makai Kingdom title. Unfortunately, SRPGs just aren't very popular here in the States, so I keep on going back to play this PS2 game since I haven't played anything that's quite as good. Don't even get me started on those bastard Final Fantasy Tactics sequels. So there it is, my favorite games that I currently have in my collection. Games like Dark Cloud 2 and Beyond Good and Evil are not on this list because I haven't played much of them, yet. I suspect they would both be on this list if I had spent more time with them, and maybe by next year I will have. I do plan on checking out this video later and seeing how much has changed. If you would like to see what I currently have in my collection, there is a link in the description. If you see any games in there that you think should have been mentioned, please tell me about it in the comments so that I know which games I need to make time for. At the time of the making of this video, there's about a 66% chance that this is the first video of mine that you've ever seen. If you are part of that 66% and my channel is new to you, I need you to click on that subscribe button below so I can keep on funneling these awesome videos into your eyeballs. That's right, I'm here to poke you in the eyes with knowledge. Also, click that like button and make sure to recommend games to me in the comment section below. Word to Big Bird.